There's this YouTuber named Brother Jake. I don't know if you guys heard of him. He's been around for like years, but he hasn't released anything in like 5 years. He's an ex-mormon, and he's so funny. Oh my God. So he, quote unquote, defends the Book of Mormon in this. Give this a listen.
Hi, I'm Brother Jake. Now, there are a lot of people out there that think that the Book of Mormon is a 19th century piece of biblical fan fiction, but they couldn't be more wrong. Let me explain. But first, let's set the stage, shall we? Like I've talked about before, the Book of Mormon is a sacred book of scripture that was written by the ancient inhabitants of the Americas on these golden plate thingies and then buried for hundreds of years until the guy that buried them appeared as an angel to Joseph Smith in 1820 and told him where they were buried, which just so happened to be like right behind his house. And then Joseph Smith dug them up and translated them through the power of God by reading them off this special rock inside a hat, which I've also talked about before. So basically, the Book of Mormon is proof that Joseph Smith was a legit prophet, since if the Book of Mormon...
Dude, I love this. This is so funny. All of his little characters and everything. And you may not even notice all of the funny little references, but in the bottom right corner, he said it's totally legit. And then he put a picture of MC Hammer on the thing from the album cover, Too Legit to Quit. That's the best, dude. That's just fantastic. Too Legit to Quit. Here you go. Too Legit to Quit. MC Hammer. Just fantastic.
Inside a hat, which I've also talked about before. So basically, the Book of Mormon is proof that Joseph Smith was a legit prophet, since if the Book of Mormon is true, that would mean that Joseph Smith was telling the truth about being shown golden plates by an angel, which would mean that he was really given divine power to translate them, which would mean that he was really called of God, which would mean that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that he restored is the one true Church of Christ.
My God, dude, it is so confusing and winding and nonsensical, right? And on top of that, what about the other, like, Mormon splinter groups? There are a ton of different Mormon splinter groups based off of the line of succession. Like, I think Joseph Smith had a son, and one of the, denominations? Is that what you call it? I don't know. One of the denominations of Mormonism believes that he was the next leader. Another one believes that his second in command was supposed to be the leader. I mean, there are, like, 15 different versions of Mormonism or something like that. The same thing happened in Islam. It was a line of succession thing.
Got it? But here's the deal. There are a bunch of people that say that the Book of Mormon isn't exactly accurate or remotely plausible as a real actual history of real actual people that lived in the real actual ancient Americas, which would mean that Joseph Smith made the golden plates and the angel Moroni thing up, which would mean that he wasn't called as a prophet, which would mean that this isn't the one true Church of Christ. But don't worry, it's not a big deal at all. Now, a lot of these so-called issues with the Book of Mormon spring from the fact that the American continent apparently has always been a bit of a loner, geographically speaking, since it's, surrounded by a couple of big old oceans. But according to...
Dude, I love his style. He's really funny, right? He's so on point, too.
A bunch of scientists back millions of years ago during the last ice age, sea levels all over the world dropped because all the water got kind of sucked up into the polar ice caps, which meant that for the first time in, forever, the Americas were directly connected to other continents by a little strip of land right... Oh, here. Anyway, that allowed some animals and the humans that hunted them to just kind of wander into America.
I prefer mosey. They moseyed their way into America, yeah.
I guess. Then when the ice age ended around 10 to 15,000 years ago, the polar ice caps melted, the sea levels came back up, which put that strip of land back underwater and kind of put the kibosh on plants and animals or cultural ideas going between Eurasia and the Americas until people figured out how to sail across those big old oceans and get some trade routes going in the 15th, 16th centuries. So this is where the idea of an anachronism comes in, which is a fancy word for when something that's supposedly from a certain time period in the past has things in it that are clearly from a future time period. Well, future compared to the original time period. They're both in the past compared to like now, which means that the thing is actually from a future but still past period and not from the past period at all. You know what? How about an example?
He's so entertaining. It's such a shame that he stopped doing videos. I would totally shout him out like all day, every day if he started again. I heard he had a stroke or something. I don't know. Maybe he's totally fine and I was off base.
One day in elementary school, your friend Kevin comes up and he's like, "Hey, I'll let you look at my great-grandpa's time capsule from the Civil War for $5. And then there's one of these in there. You should probably call him a dumb, stupid, booger-eating, doo-doo head stinky liar and ask for your lunch money back. Because having that in a box of Civil War memorabilia would be... anachronistic. That's right. Take that, Kevin. You freaking jerk.
A little sign says, "Suck it, Kevin." Interesting touch. Damn, there are a lot of really good YouTubers that just kind of faded away. It's just really sad.
Anyway, the point is that all these fancy archaeologists are saying that some of the animals and plants mentioned in the Book of Mormon are anachronistic to the ancient Americas since they didn't, exist anywhere in the Americas before the European colonists showed up. Which might make it kind of seem like the Book of Mormon was actually written by someone in post-colonial America who was just making up a story about ancient Americans based off the stuff he kind of saw around him at the time, rather.
Yeah, especially since we know that Joseph Smith used that same stupid little rock to do parlor tricks when he was younger. He used to swindle people into paying him to find hidden treasure with that little rock. I mean, how anybody fell for this is beyond me.
And being written by ancient Americans themselves. But you know what? I bet it's not that big a deal. I mean, how many of these so-called anachronistic plants and animals could there be? Let's see. There's
a lot. A whole heck of a heap.
Horses and cows and sheep and goats and donkeys and swine and bees and elephants and wheat and barley and grapes. Okay, that's a list. But you know what? We'll take them one at a time.
It's because the Book of Mormon was supposedly recorded, or it was about a time in 500 CE or something. I don't remember now. But the point is, when people were migrating over that land bridge, the Mormons believed that the Jewish people from Israel migrated to America and became the Native Americans, basically. And he believes that, Joseph Smith believed that there were two different Native American tribes, where primarily there were the Lehites and the Nephites, I think. Again, I'm not an ex-Mormon, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong on this. One had darker skin and the other had lighter skin. And dark skin is a curse. It was the curse of Cain. So the dark-skinned ones were inferior to the white-skinned ones. And that belief kind of survived through the generations all the way until the 1970s, I think. So anyway, yeah. The whole thing is just fabricated nonsense. And of course, we have DNA testing now, and we can tell that Native Americans were not Semitic, weren't Jewish, weren't nothing. They were Native Americans from I think 30,000 years ago or something is when they split off, not 2000. I just finished writing a book titled Was Hitler an Atheist? It talks about religions during the Third Reich and how they work together. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Protestants. And I even address the lies told by the evangelical world about Bonhoeffer. It's on Audible and Amazon. Okay, let's continue.
And start with the horses. Okay, horses. Let's see. Horses. Okay. Looky here. Turns out there were horses in ancient America since archaeologists found pre-Columbian horse remains in Alaska, which they dated back to 8 to 10,000 years ago. Oh, that's a bit further back than the Book of Mormon, but no biggie. Okay, horses.
I.e., there were no horses after that in America, basically. They had all died off or had changed in some significant way. They weren't in the fossil record anymore past a certain point. It is what he's saying here. And I think the point is that they were not here when the Book of Mormon was written.
Horses. Look, it obviously says horses in the Book of Mormon, but what if it's just something that got, mixed up in the translation process? Maybe the Nephites wrote the word for some other animal.
Oh my God, this is the excuse Mormons use constantly. It was not a translation, it was a translation, if you will. It was a spiritual translation. He wasn't actually reading the words and writing them down. He was telling us how he felt in his heart, which makes me want, why did he need the hat and the rock exactly? Why did he need the golden plates at all if it was a spiritual translation? I don't understand.
It existed in the Americas, like a deer or a tapir or something. Don't hold me to the deer tapir thing exactly. I'm just spitballing. But when Joseph Smith was translating it, he just kind of inserted something he was more familiar with, i.e. horse. So when it says horse, it's not horse, it's horse. That kind of flies in the face of the translation process as we understand it, since according to the people that were there, Joseph Smith was reading the translation God was providing word for word off the rock in his hat, which doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room for him to get, creative with the wording, but maybe Maybe the people who wrote the Book of Mormon did use the word horse to refer to something like a horse, like a deer or tapir. Again, not saying it was deer or tapir for sure, because that's the only thing that they were familiar with. Okay. All right. Forget the other thing I said. This is way better. It has a fancy academic name and everything. It's called loan shifting. It's when the meeting of an established...
This image in the top left, I believe this is a kind of a caricature of a famous Mormon scholar, quote unquote, dude that basically like lies on behalf of the Mormons in academic work. It's just insane.
Word is adapted to apply it to more stuff. There are examples of this happening too in real life.
By the way, he sings a song at the end of this video, so I hope you stick it out to hear the song. It's called the Hippopotamus Do-Si-Do. It's good. Top tier.
For example, when the Romans first came across one of these things, they had no idea what to call it, so they named it after something that they were familiar with that was kind of similar, hippopotamus or water horse. So that's what the Nephites did. It's loan shifting. They obviously knew what horses were since they came from the Middle East, so they totally knew what horses were, okay? But when they saw things that they weren't familiar with here in the New World, again, not saying it's these things necessarily, they called those things horses because that was the next closest thing for them. But they didn't mean, horses. They were just using their point of reference. And yes, that may seem like a mix-up that only someone with impaired vision or something would make. And to be fair, even the Romans threw a modifier in there to make sure it didn't get mixed up with the real thing. But every culture has their own way of doing things, and the whole loan shifting thing already happened once with Hippopotamus, so what are you going to do? Now,
he's so funny. I love this.
At this point, some of you might be saying, but swapping out the words doesn't solve the fundamental issue, which is that any society with domesticated beasts of burden leaves a wide swath of archaeological clues beyond just the animals themselves, like corrals and grazing lands and writing tools, as well as depictions of the animals in art and in religious symbolism.
Right, so I understand that the Book of Mormon has bits about horses being domesticated here, and there's like no evidence of any of that.
And there's no indication whatsoever that any society utilizing domesticated beasts of burden of any kind existed anywhere in the Americas at all before the arrival of Columbus. But you know what? There are a lot of things that we haven't discovered yet. Yeah, horses really hit it big in America after the Europeans landed, but maybe the whole beasts of burden thing just didn't go mainstream back in Book of Mormon times. Maybe...
Surprisingly, Native Americans never hit... They were in the Stone Age. They never progressed past the Stone Age. They had other technologies that were different from like the rest of the world. They just didn't have the same metals as Europeans did, I guess. They didn't have access to the same metals. So they advanced in like different directions. It's kind of like with Fallout, where instead of discovering the microchip or inventing it, they kind of went with nuclear power, nuclear radiation or something. I've never seen Fallout before or never played it. It just kind of progresses in a different direction, basically, is the point.
It's all just hidden in some part of the jungle we haven't looked at yet. Do you know for 100% certain that there aren't horse-ish remains in the undiscovered jungle?
Horse-ish remains.
Yeah, I didn't think so, so just back off there, buddy. You know what? We're spending too much time on the horses.
He's so funny.
It's a long list, but hey, one down, so yay! Okay, moving on to cow.
Dude, and look, he put this Mormon, like, scholar, quote-unquote, his head on Goku's body, it seems, from Dragon Ball Z. That's funny, man. I wish he was still around. This is so sad.
So, yay! Okay, moving on to cows. Oh, bison. Nailed it. I mean, it still doesn't solve the whole no evidence of large-scale animal domestication in the ancient Americas problem, since, by all accounts, the ancient American cultures that munched on bison would follow wild herds nomadically rather than pen them and breed them as domesticated animals in the way the use of the term cow or cattle implies in the Book of Mormon, but, potato, hippopotamus. Let's do a plant this time. Wheat. Wheat is like amaranth, which is a perennial plant that the Aztecs used as a food source, apparently. See, it even looks like wheat, more or less. So, bonus. This is fun. And you know what? I'm seeing a pattern here. In fact, I think we can polish off the rest of this list in one fell swoop.
It's all loan shifted. That's funny. So what are pigs supposed to be? Like, I don't understand. And what are bees?
I actually wrote a little song for this, just a little ditty to help you resolve any other allegedly anachronistic plants or animals.
Here we go.
In the Book of Mormon. It goes a little something like this. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Well, it's a plague of latter days to be beset from every way by slanderific Book of Mormon gripes. They see horses mentioned here or there and feel entitled to declare the text to be anachronistic tripe. But when those fiery darts descend, it is no laughing matter, friend, and for such times I wrote this little song. It's a method of supreme deflection, whipped up just for your protection, so see if you can try and sing along.
Wait, what did he say? Supreme deflection for your protection. Dude, I love it. Mormons oftentimes, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt the song because, copyright and all that, but Mormons are often very skilled musically because, I don't know why, they just have a culture of playing musical instruments. I guess if you go to college, then it shouldn't be for something academic. Just be music, which, don't get me wrong, music is cool, but anyway, that's fascinating.
First grab a hold of that pesky word, the one that science finds absurd. Twist it round and squint your eyes and start a-searching for the prize. Something you can point to as a semblance, even if it's just a slight resemblance. Just a shred of plausibility is all you need, and then you too can know the hippopotamus do-si-do.
Dude, I love that he put a little hat on the hippo. This is great, right? I'm so sad he doesn't upload anymore. Maybe I can find a way to contact him and beg him to upload new stuff. Honestly, this probably takes him forever to make each episode, like maybe a month per episode or something.
Now there are those that might dismiss and tell us that we've gone amiss. They may whine and moan and even cuss, saying we protect our intellects by taking those who wrote the text and throwing them right underneath the bus. But we're just doing what we can for the eternal life of man by giving faith an academic look.
Look, you can have faith or logic and science and knowledge. If you have evidence, you don't need faith. If you need faith, it's because you don't have evidence. If you have faith, you don't need evidence. This is just ridiculous. It just drives me nuts when these religious movements that are completely off base scientifically try to warp science to fit their ridiculous little narrative.
So next time you find yourself bowed beneath a heavy shelf, just take a page out of the Romans book. Snatch that critter by the neck before it drags you down to heck. Pick it up and swing it round and start searching up and down.
Dude, I love that. Before it drags you down to heck.
For the juicy taste of confirmation, for the warm embrace of validation. Something to help you get back up on your feet is all you need to bask inside the glow of the hippopotamus do-si-do. All right. I hope that helps you out. That's enough for now, I think.
Top tier. I love it, man. This is the best. I actually have like multiple videos of him. One is why Mormons love Trump or something. And then the other is part 2 of Brother Jake Defends a Book of Mormon. It's just so funny, man. Maybe I'll do another like talking about his video. It's just really good. Tell me what you think in the comments.